got a few items to cover here just to summarize what we've been talking about in reporting. Let's first start off with best practices. You've got to read over everything. And if there's any kind of changes you need to make those changes. Don't go, oh, I'll let that go. Because anything that you let go is going to be brought up in the court. It's going to be a source of somebody picking on you at that point. So say, hey, I made a mistake in here and now I've fixed that mistake before we actually got to the formal presentation. Be concise about your structure. Make sure that it's easy to understand for the people on the other side of the page of paper. Investigators should let an outsider read the report. That is also protected under a non-disclosure agreement. I have my wife review my report. She's a very trusted advisor, and she's an excellent writer, and she helps me to get to that focus. And remember, that's a collaboration. Don't hand your report to somebody else and say, read this and tell me what you think and put some notes in it. Work with them right there and make sure that you understand that, hey, we're losing the point of this thing, or let's reword this thing. The person that's going to read your report may not understand the technicalities of this, and they may not understand the legal community. They may only be a juror, and that's all they have to go on because they forgot. They had a lapse at that point. They were asleep in the jury booth. And so they may have to go back to that piece of paper and look at that piece of data so that it needs to convey that information in a nice, clear manner. Okay, so what are the features of a good report? Let's talk about those and then some do's and don'ts. What we want to do is we want to make sure that we've got a method for explanations and how we actually do that, data collection, calculations. Any uncertainty or an error analysis says that here's my chunk of data, and that uncertainty analysis actually tells them that you've done scientific work on this, and you say, I have a high degree of certainty in this, but there is room for a margin of error here. If I give you 100 data points and I say plus or minus 3 of these data points, then that lets me know that there's only a little piece in here that's potentially bad data. Potentially I shouldn't help support the opposing counsel or you. If you've got a plus or minus 50% on here, then this report really isn't any good for them. And as you start using the statistics to prove that uncertainty and that uncertainty analysis, you're helping the reader to make those decisions and come to their own conclusions. Do a results explanation, discuss the results and the conclusions, and then give them good references at the end. So if they need to dig deeper, they can ask, hey, I need to dig deeper into this. Where did we get this information? That also, by the way, that references section leads to them questioning external people. So any references that you give, make sure that you communicate with those people and say, hey, I want to use you as I'm going to use your works. Is it okay? Let them know that that's coming. Now, they may never be called, but at least you've gone through those communication channels and set those references up well. Lastly, let's talk about a couple of do's and don'ts in reporting. Ask lots of questions as you're trying to achieve this report, the first versions of your report, and document everything very thoroughly because you're going to be questioned on every piece of your process. Remember, the opposing counsel's job is to discredit you, your process, and the evidence that's in front of them. The easiest thing to do is to make you look like an idiot in front of the jury, and therefore, since you're an idiot, don't listen to any of this evidence that this person has put forth. So they're questioning you. Operate in good faith. Remember, you're trying to be a scientist here. If you're getting in over your head, tell people, say, stop, wait a minute, we need a better expert on this that's digging into this, because the original scope of this was mobile forensics, and now this is hooked up to a computer, and they've been doing syncing through iTunes to a Macintosh, and I have no knowledge of that particular operating system there. Let's bring in somebody else. Make the decision to investigate. Remember, you've got a certain amount of time to actually do these experiments, and this could cost a significant amount of money. So are you doing this investigation, and is it a part of what the attorney wants you to investigate? Treat everything as confidential. I would say, I go back to the reports that I generate, I would say that all of this is encrypted if I'm disseminating it, or it's password protected if I'm disseminating it. And then I also put all of my reporting data on a drive, and these are for my penetration test. I put them on a drive that has a physical encryption key on it that I actually pull out and put in my safe. And then file everything appropriately. Make sure that it gets to the right people at the right time. Be on time is what it boils down to in your do's and don'ts with your paperwork. That's a nice, good look at reporting. Be prepared to write well and learn how to write well.